Tiana Cole's thumb hovered over the send button. Outside her window, the shadow in the rain stopped moving. It was watching her. She hit send. The stalker found my apartment. Please help. She thought she was texting her brother. She was wrong. 300 miles away, in a room filled with smoke and silent men, the most feared man in the underground looked at his phone. Min Suk Kong didn't call the police. He didn't ignore it. He looked at the reflection in the photo Tiana had accidentally attached, and his blood turned to ice. He typed 4 words that would change Tiana's life, or end it. Lights off. I'm coming. But here's the thing. Min Suk didn't move because he was a hero. He moved because he recognized the man in the window. The real terror wasn't the shadow outside her glass. It was the man currently driving toward her at 120 miles per hour. Tiana thought she'd made a mistake. But as the power in her building cut to black, she was about to realize that some wrong numbers are exactly who you were meant to call. The question is, who is really hunting who? Tiana's feet burned. 10 hours at the diner will do that to a person. She walked down the dark hallway of her apartment building. The light overhead flickered. It made a buzzing sound that set her teeth on edge. She reached into her pocket. Her fingers found her keys. But she stopped. She froze. The air in the hallway felt heavy. It felt like someone was standing right behind her. She turned around fast. Nothing. Just empty space and peeling wallpaper. Was she losing her mind? For a week, she felt eyes on her. At the bus stop. At the park. Even while pouring coffee for the regulars. She shook it off and turned back to her door. That's when the world stopped. Tiana looked at her lock. There were deep, fresh scratches in the metal. Someone didn't just try to get in. They knew exactly how this specific lock worked. Her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. How long had they been watching her? She pushed the door. It wasn't locked. It creaked open into the pitch-black living room. The smell hit her first. It wasn't her house. It smelled like rain and wet wool. Tiana stepped inside. Her breath came in short, shallow gasps. She reached for the light switch. She flipped it. Nothing happened. The room stayed dark. But she had paid the bill this morning. She pulled out her phone. The screen was too bright in the shadows. She used the flashlight to scan the room. Everything looked normal. Her coat was on the chair. Her mail was on the table. Then the light hit the floor. Muddy footprints led from the window straight to her bedroom door. The window was wide open. The curtains flapped in the cold wind like ghost wings. She wasn't alone. She could hear a soft, wet sound. Drip, drip, drip. It was coming from inside her closet. Tiana's hands shook so hard she almost dropped her phone. She needed help. She needed her brother, Marcus. He was the only one who could save her. She typed a message with numb fingers. The stalker found my apartment. Please help. She didn't check the contact name. She didn't have time. She hit send and ducked behind the kitchen counter. Her phone buzzed in her hand. A reply came back instantly. But it wasn't from Marcus. The contact name was just a string of random numbers. The message read, "Lights off. I'm coming." Tiana stared at the screen. Her brother lived across town. It would take him 30 minutes to get here. Who is this person? And why were they already so close? That's when the bedroom door began to turn. Slowly. Quietly. The person in the closet wasn't the one she had to worry about. There was someone already standing in the kitchen with her. Tiana looked up. A tall, dark shape blocked the exit. She realized her mistake too late. She hadn't sent a plea for help. She had sent an invitation to a monster. The air in the basement was thick with the smell of old iron and cold sweat. Min Suk Kong sat in a high-backed chair. He looked calm. He looked like he was watching a movie, not a man begging for his life. In front of him, a traitor was tied to a wooden stool. The man's face was a mess of bruises. "Please, boss," the man gasped. "I didn't mean to tell them. They forced me." Min Suk didn't blink. He adjusted his silk cufflink. "Intent doesn't matter," Min Suk said. His voice was as smooth as glass. "Results do. And the result is that I lost money." He raised a hand. His guards stepped forward. They were ready to end it. That's when his phone buzzed on the table. Min-suk never checked his phone during a job. It was a rule. Everyone in the room held their breath. But for some reason, he reached out. He picked it up. The screen showed a message from a number he didn't know. The stalker found my apartment. Please help. Min-suk frowned. He was about to toss the phone aside. But there was an image attached. He tapped it. The photo showed a dark window. It was blurry. It was a cry for help sent in a state of pure panic. Min-suk stared at the reflection in the glass. Behind the girl, a man was standing in the rain. He was wearing a specific type of hooded jacket. The guards watched Min-suk's face. It didn't change. What they didn't know was that Min-suk's heart had just skipped a beat. He knew that jacket. He knew the way that man stood. The stalker wasn't a random creep. He was a professional hitman. And he worked for the very people Min-suk was hunting. Boss, the head guard whispered. Should we finish the traitor? Min-suk stood up. The chair scraped loudly against the concrete floor. Leave him, Min-suk said. The room went silent. The guards looked at each other. Their boss never showed mercy. Why was he stopping now? Min-suk looked at the girl's face in the photo. She looked terrified. She looked like she had no idea what kind of world she had just stepped into. He thought about his own sister. He thought about the blood on his hands. Suddenly, the basement felt too small. The traitor's crying felt annoying. Min-suk had a new mission. He didn't know this girl. He didn't know her name. But he knew that if he didn't move, she would be dead in 10 minutes. And more importantly, the man in the window was a ghost he had been chasing for years. Bring the car around, Min-suk ordered. I want the black sedan. And I want it now. He typed his reply with steady fingers. Lights off. I'm coming. He walked out of the basement without looking back. He left the traitor shivering in the dark. He left his guards standing in confusion. Min-suk Kong was the ghost of Seoul. He lived for the kill. But tonight, he was going to be someone's savior. As he sped through the rain, his phone buzzed again. It was a second photo. This time, the girl's face was closer. There was a birthmark on her neck. Min-suk slammed on the brakes. The car screeched in the middle of the empty street. That's when he realized the truth. This wasn't just a wrong number. This was a message from the past. And he wasn't the only one who was coming for her. Tiana crouched in the corner of her kitchen. The floor was cold. Her breath was shaky. She stared at her phone. The screen flickered. Then it went black. The whole apartment went dark. The hum of the fridge stopped. The light from the street disappeared. Someone had pulled the plug on her world. Click. 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 The sound came from the window. It was steady. It was rhythmic. Someone was tapping on the glass with a fingernail. Tiana pressed her back against the cabinet. Her heart beat in time with the noise. Tap. 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 It was the shadow man. He was right there. Just a thin sheet of glass separated them. She looked at her phone again. A blue bubble popped up on the screen. Lights off. I'm coming. Tiana's heart leaped. Hope flooded her chest for a split second. But then a cold thought followed. Marcus always used green bubbles. He had an old phone. The person who replied was using a different system. Who is this? She tried to type back. Her fingers were like blocks of ice. Who are you? Marcus? The message didn't send. There was no signal. She was trapped in a box of shadows. And the man outside was tired of waiting. That's when the tapping stopped. The silence was even worse. It felt like a heavy blanket over her head. Tiana held her breath. She listened so hard her ears hurt. Scrape. The sound of metal on metal. The window lock was moving. He wasn't just watching anymore. He was coming inside. Tiana crawled toward the hallway. She needed a weapon. A heavy lamp. A kitchen knife. Anything. But she stopped. A new light appeared. It wasn't from the street. It was a pair of bright white headlights. A black car roared down the narrow alleyway. It didn't slow down. It slammed into the trash cans below her window with a loud bang. Tiana scrambled to the glass. She looked down. A man stepped out of the car. He wasn't wearing a hood. He was wearing a suit that looked more expensive than her entire apartment building. He looked up. His eyes locked onto hers for a fraction of a second. He didn't look scared. He didn't look like a brother coming to help. He looked like a hunter who had just found his prize. That's when the window in her bedroom finally shattered. Glass rained down on the hardwood floor. The stalker was in. Tiana turned to run toward the front door. But the door was already opening. The man in the suit was standing there. He had traveled 3 floors in seconds. He didn't say a word. He didn't ask if she was okay. He simply reached into his jacket and pulled out a heavy black object. Tiana backed away. She was caught between 2 monsters. The stalker behind her. The stranger in front of her. "Step aside," the stranger said. His voice was like velvet over gravel. It made her skin crawl and her heart stop. Tiana realized something then. This man wasn't here to save her from the stalker. He was here because the stalker had touched something that belonged to him. And that something was Tiana. The glass in the bedroom exploded. Tiana screamed and hit the floor. Shards of the window flew through the air like tiny knives. A heavy boot stepped onto the hardwood. The stalker was inside. He was a shadow in a hooded jacket. He didn't say a word. He just moved toward her. Tiana scrambled backward. Her hands caught on the broken glass. She didn't feel the pain. She only felt the terror. Is this how it ends? The stalker reached out a gloved hand. He was inches away from grabbing her hair. But suddenly the air behind him shifted. A hand reached out from the dark hallway. It was fast. Faster than anything Tiana had ever seen. The hand grabbed the stalker's collar. With a single violent jerk, the man was yanked off his feet. He flew backward into the hallway without making a sound. What just happened? Tiana stared into the dark. Her breath was coming in short, ragged bursts. Then she saw him. A tall man stepped into the light of her phone's flashlight. It was the stranger in the suit. Min-suk Kong. He stood in the doorway. He looked perfectly calm. His tie wasn't even crooked. But his eyes were cold. They were the eyes of a wolf looking at a rabbit. Behind him, the stalker lay crumpled on the floor. The predator was gasping for air. Min-suk didn't even look at the man he had just crushed. He only looked at Tiana. "I told you to turn off the lights," he said. His voice was low. It was the kind of voice that demanded you listen. Tiana's brain was spinning. There were police cars at the end of the block. She had seen the blue lights from the window. How did he get past them? How did a man in a black sedan drive through a police line without being stopped? That's when Tiana noticed the small pin on his jacket. It was gold. It was a symbol she didn't recognize. But clearly the police did. Min-suk stepped into her living room. He didn't ask if he could enter. He owned the space. The immediate danger was gone. The stalker was neutralized. But a new, bigger threat was now standing in her home. He looked around her small apartment. He looked at her cheap furniture and her old TV. "You don't belong here," Min-suk whispered. Tiana finally found her voice. "Who are you? Why did you come?" Min-suk walked toward her. He moved with a grace that was terrifying. "I am the man you called," he replied. He reached down and picked up a piece of the broken window. He looked at the blood on it. What Tiana didn't know was that her brother Marcus wasn't coming. She didn't know that her phone had been tapped for months. And she definitely didn't know that the man in front of her was the reason she was in danger in the first place. Min-suk leaned in close. He smelled like expensive cologne and gunpowder. "The stalker was just the beginning," he said. "The real monsters are already on the stairs." That's when a heavy thud sounded against her front door. Someone was trying to kick it down. And they weren't using a fingernail to tap. Min-suk didn't flinch. He just looked at Tiana and held out his hand. "Do you want to live?" he asked. "Or do you want to stay here and find out what happens next?" Tiana looked at his hand. Then she looked at the door. The wood began to splinter. She took his hand. But as the door flew open, she realized she hadn't been saved. She had just been traded to a more powerful owner. The apartment was finally quiet, but it didn't feel safe. Tiana sat on the floor, her heart still racing. She expected Min-suk to help her up. She expected him to ask if she was hurt. But he didn't. He didn't even look at her. Min-suk walked through her small living room like a man inspecting a crime scene. He moved with cold, sharp movements. He reached up and pulled a smoke detector off the ceiling. He didn't check the battery. He crushed it in his hand. "What are you doing?" Tiana whispered. Min-suk didn't answer. He walked to her bookshelf. He tipped over a small vase of plastic flowers. Crunch! He pulled a tiny, blinking device from the bottom of the vase. It was a camera. A very expensive one. "I didn't put that there," Tiana said. Her voice was trembling. "I know," Min-suk replied. "Because if I had planted it, you would never have found it." He tossed the broken camera onto the coffee table. Tiana felt a new kind of fear. This wasn't a creepy guy watching her from the bushes. This was high-tech equipment. Who would spend thousands of dollars to watch a waitress? Min-suk walked over to the unconscious stalker on the floor. He kicked the man's hood back with his shoe. That's when Tiana saw the truth. The man wasn't a messy loner. He had a military haircut. He had a tattoo on his neck, a dragon wrapped around a dagger. "This isn't a stalker," Min-suk said. His voice was cold. "This is a scout." Tiana blinked. "A scout? For what?" "For a war," Min-suk said. He reached into the man's pocket and pulled out a suppressed handgun. This wasn't a toy. It was a professional tool for a hitman. The room felt like it was spinning. Tiana thought she was in a scary movie about a girl in danger. But the story had just changed. This wasn't a slasher film anymore. It was something much bigger. "They weren't here to scare you," Min-suk said. He looked her dead in the eye. "They were here to see if you were alone before they took you." "Why?" The question burned in Tiana's mind. She was just a girl who served coffee and saved her tips. She lived in a one-bedroom apartment with a leaky faucet. She didn't have any money. She didn't have any secrets. What she didn't know was that her entire life was a lie. Min-suk stepped closer to her. He didn't offer a hand, but he stood like a shield between her and the door. "The People's Syndicate doesn't send scouts for waitresses," he muttered. That's when the silence was broken. A red dot appeared on Min-suk's chest, then another one on Tiana's forehead. They weren't coming through the door anymore. The lasers were coming from the building across the street. "Get down!" Min-suk roared. He didn't grab her arm this time. He tackled her to the floor just as a bullet whizzed through the air. It didn't hit the wall. It hit the microwave, making it explode in a shower of sparks. The hunt wasn't over. It was just moving to the next level. "They aren't waiting for the scout to report back," Min-suk hissed. "They already have the green light to kill us both." Min-suk dragged Tiana into the narrow hallway. The kitchen behind them was a mess of smoke and broken glass. The red laser dots danced on the walls like angry fireflies. "Stay low," Min-suk hissed. Tiana's knees hit the carpet. Her world felt like it was spinning out of control. "Who are those people?" she choked out. "I'm just a waitress. I don't know anything about syndicates." Min-suk looked at her. Really looked at her. For the first time, his cold eyes softened. "Just a little." "You think you're Tiana Cole," he said. "The girl with the double shifts and the empty bank account." "I am Tiana Cole," she snapped. Min-suk shook his head. He pulled a small, leather-bound notebook from his inner pocket. "Your mother told you your father died in a car accident before you were born," he said. Tiana froze. "How do you know that?" "Because I was there when he actually died," Min-suk revealed. "But it wasn't a car. It was a golden throne." That's when the room felt like it lost all its air. Min-suk leaned closer. The smell of smoke was all over him. "The man who ruled the Seoul underworld before me was named Victor Cole," he whispered. "He was my mentor, my king, and he was your father." Tiana shook her head. "No, that's impossible. My father was a construction worker." "He was a billionaire," Min-suk corrected. "But it wasn't just about the name. When he died, he locked away $400 million, Min-suk said. "The money is in a frozen account. Only a drop of his blood can open it." Tiana looked at her shaking hands. She wasn't a waitress anymore. She was a key, a $400 million key. "That is why the scout was here," Min-suk said. "They don't want to kill you yet. They want to bleed you first." The truth hit Tiana like a physical blow. Her entire life was a lie. Her mother had hidden her to keep her safe. But the safety was gone now. What he didn't know was that Tiana's mind was racing. Did she really text the wrong number? She thought about her brother, Marcus. He always told her to be careful. She looked at Min-suk's phone on the floor. The number she had texted wasn't Marcus's. It wasn't even close. But it was a number she had seen written in the back of her mother's old Bible. Had she known all along? You didn't text a stranger, Tiana, Min-suk said, as if reading her mind. You texted the only man your father trusted to protect his legacy. Tiana felt a chill run down her spine. She wasn't a victim anymore. She was the princess of the underworld. But every princess has enemies. Suddenly, a loud metallic clink sounded from the front door. It wasn't a kick. It wasn't a bullet. It was the sound of a key turning in the lock. Someone had the spare key to her apartment. Tiana looked at Min-suk. His face went pale. He didn't have the key. And the police didn't have it either. The door creaked open. Tiana, a familiar voice called out. It was Marcus. But as he stepped into the light, he wasn't holding a bag of groceries. He was holding a silenced pistol. And he was pointing it directly at Min-suk's heart. The black sedan raced through the city. Min-suk drove like a man possessed. Tiana sat in the passenger seat, her eyes fixed on the gun in the center console. We're going to the penthouse, Min-suk said. It's off the books. No one knows it exists. Tiana didn't answer. Her heart felt like a drum. Was he telling the truth? Or was he just another kidnapper with a better suit? They reached the building. It was made of glass and steel. It looked like a castle for the modern world. The elevator ride was silent. Tiana watched the floor numbers climb. 40, 50, 60. The doors opened to a room filled with marble and white leather. It looked perfect. It looked safe. But then Min-suk stopped. He looked at the dining table. There were 2 glasses of wine poured. The liquid was still swirling. Someone is here, he whispered. That's when the lights cut out. A heavy burst of gunfire shattered the marble pillars. Down! Min-suk yelled. He grabbed Tiana and threw her behind a thick kitchen island. He pulled his weapon, but he only had 1 clip left. Boss! A voice called from the dark. It sounded familiar. It was June, Min-suk's second-in-command. The man Tiana had seen in the car earlier. You're getting old, Min-suk, June laughed. You brought the girl right to us. Now give her the needle so we can get that blood sample. Tiana's blood turned to ice. Min-suk's own man had sold them out. The safe house was actually a killing floor. Who can I trust if the ghost of Seoul can't even trust his own shadow? Min-suk fired back, but he was pinned down. He reached for his backup weapon on the floor. It was too far away. It lay near Tiana's feet. Tiana! The gun! Kick it to me! Min-suk roared. Tiana looked at the black metal. If she gave it to him, people would die. If she ran, she might be caught anyway. But if she didn't help him, she was a dead woman. That's when she made her choice. She didn't just kick it. She crawled through the broken glass. She grabbed the weapon. She felt the cold weight of it. This was her first step into the dark. She lunged forward and slammed the gun into Min-suk's hand. He didn't waste a second. He rolled out and fired 3 perfect shots into the shadows. June screamed. The gunfire from the other side stopped. But the victory felt hollow. Tiana looked at her hands. They were covered in dust and grease. She wasn't the waitress from the diner anymore. We have to go, Min-suk said. He was bleeding from a cut on his forehead. There will be more of them. He grabbed her hand. It was the first time his grip felt desperate. What he didn't know was that Tiana wasn't following him out of fear anymore. She was following him because she wanted to see the world burn. They ran for the back stairs. The air was thick with the smell of burnt powder. But as they reached the bottom floor, the heavy steel doors wouldn't open. They've locked the building, Min-suk hissed. Suddenly, a screen on the wall flickered to life. It wasn't June. It wasn't the syndicate. It was a live feed of Tiana's mother. She was tied to a chair in a room Tiana didn't recognize. And a man was standing over her with a knife. You have 10 minutes to bring the girl to the docks, the voice said. Tiana felt her soul break. The choice wasn't about her life anymore. It was about her mother's. And the man holding the knife was the only person Tiana thought she could trust. The sirens in the distance were fading. Min-suk led Tiana through a secret tunnel behind the boiler room. He didn't look back to see if she was following. He knew she had nowhere else to go. They climbed into a new car, a dusty SUV hidden in an alley. Tiana's heart was still in her throat. She thought about her mother on that screen. She thought about the knife. "We have to go to the docks," she cried. "They're going to kill her." Min-suk didn't start the engine. He leaned back and checked his watch. "Relax," he said. His voice was cold again. "Your mother is safe. She's at a safe house in Jeju." Tiana blinked. "What?" "I saw the video. Marcus had a knife to her throat." But Min-suk just smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. "That video was recorded 3 years ago," he said. "Marcus was protecting her back then. He's not a traitor. He's my best agent." Tiana felt the world tilt. Her brother wasn't a monster. But that meant the whole night was a lie. "Why put me through this?" "You used me," Tiana whispered. That's when the real reveal happened. Min-suk turned to look at her. "I knew June was planning a coup. I knew my men were looking for a reason to turn on me." He tapped the dashboard. "They needed to see me weak. They needed to see me distracted by a girl." Tiana felt a sick heat rise in her chest. "I was the bait," she said. "It wasn't a question." "You were the perfect lure," Min-suk replied. "Because you didn't know you were acting. Your fear was real. That's what brought them out into the open." Tiana wanted to scream. She had almost died. She had held a gun for the first time. She had felt her soul start to turn black. And all of it was just a part of his plan. Is there any heart left in this man? She looked at him. He looked like a machine made of fine wool and sharp edges. "You're a monster," she said. "I am a survivor," he corrected. "And now so are you." But what he didn't know was that Tiana was done being a victim. The power in the car shifted. Tiana didn't shrink back into the seat. She leaned forward. If she was a pawn in his game, she was going to make sure she reached the other side of the board. "You need my blood to get that money," Tiana said. Her voice was steady now. $400 million. Min-suk narrowed his eyes. "You can't get it without me," she continued. "So from now on, you don't give the orders. We do this together, or I walk into the ocean and take the code with me." Min-suk stared at her. The silence in the car was heavy enough to crush them both. That's when he reached into the back seat. He didn't pull out a weapon. He pulled out a black folder. "I was wondering when you would wake up," he said. He handed her the folder. Inside was a list of names. Every person who had ever hurt her family. "But there is one name missing," Min-suk whispered. Tiana looked at the bottom of the list. There was a blank space. "Who goes there?" she asked. Min-suk pointed to the mirror. "The person who is currently sitting in the back of this car," he said. Tiana spun around. The SUV swayed as a heavy weight landed on the roof. A hand smashed through the back window. It wasn't a hitman. It was a man wearing a mask of Tiana's own father. The SUV skidded to a halt near the edge of the harbor. The man on the roof didn't stand a chance. Min-suk didn't even look up as he fired a single shot through the ceiling. The body rolled off the car and splashed into the black water. Silence returned to the docks. The sun was just starting to peek over the city. Min-suk stepped out of the car. He opened Tiana's door. He didn't pull her out this time. He waited. "The traitors are dead," Min-suk said. "The coup is over. You are safe now." Tiana stepped out onto the cold concrete. She looked at her hands. There was grease from the gun she had kicked. There was a smudge of blood from the broken glass. "Can I ever really wash this off?" "I have a plane waiting," Min-suk continued. "I can send you back home. I will pay for your school. You will have guards, but you will never see them." He leaned against the car. "You can be an ordinary girl again. You can go back to the diner. You can pretend this night never happened." Tiana closed her eyes. She thought about the smell of old coffee. She thought about the customers who never learned her name. But then, she thought about the power she felt when she held that weapon. She thought about the secret account worth $400 million. "And what happens to the seat?" Tiana asked. "The one my father left behind?" Min-suk's eyes flashed with something like respect. "Someone will take it," he said. "The underworld hates a vacuum. If it isn't you, it will be another monster." Tiana looked at the city lights. They looked like diamonds scattered on a black cloth. What happens to the waitress if she becomes the queen? You said I was a pawn, Tiana whispered. I said you were a pawn that could reach the end of the board, Minsuk corrected. That's when Tiana made her final move. She didn't walk toward the plane. She walked toward the black sedan waiting at the end of the pier. I'm not going back to the diner, she said. Her voice didn't shake. It was as cold as the ocean behind her. Minsuk followed her. He opened the back door of the car. Tiana sat down in the deep leather seat. She leaned her head back. She looked exactly like the photo on the phone, calm, powerful, and dangerous. Minsuk didn't sit next to her. He stood outside the car, guarding the door. He was the ghost of Seoul. But he was her ghost now. Where to, boss? He asked. Tiana looked at the folder with the missing name at the bottom. The stalker didn't find my apartment, Minsuk, she said. He found his grave. Now let's find the rest of them. The car sped away, leaving the morning light behind. But as they drove, Tiana's phone buzzed in her hand. It was a message from her brother, Marcus. Don't trust him, Tiana. He didn't tell you the whole truth about Dad. Tiana looked at Minsuk's back. The game wasn't over. It was only just beginning.